what kind of life do you want to lead? What kind of creator do you want to be? If you don't start taking risks, you'll resent yourself. If you want to tell stories that awaken the artist in other people and light people up, you can't do it if you're sitting in a studio all day. You have to create space to live, because the most important things come from that.
Tell us how we know when something is ready to be published or it's good enough.
And it's a continuous relearning too. So, for example, if you can do something that you generally love to do, that scratches that creative itch, that allows you to think and put yourself out into the world, and it's directly helping others, sky's the limit. Like, let's go.
Welcome to the Jen Gottlieb Show.
Eddie, welcome to the show.
Jen, so good to be here.
I'm so grateful. Okay, I have to tell the audience really quick before we dive in, the backstory, because I'm a fangirl. This is you guys are jumping into a moment where I'm meeting somebody that I've been fangirling over since, I don't even know, I think it was way before COVID. I found Eddie on Spotify, but apparently he's been making content well before I found him. And he was doing these motivational rants or keynote speeches where he just like pours motivation into your body. And I would do my workouts every morning and listen to Eddie do these unbelievably motivational speeches. And I was like, I have a secret and I don't want to share him with anyone. Cause I was like, this is like my secret motivator and my fire under my butt in the beginning of the day. And I just was obsessed with your stuff. And I don't know why I didn't ask earlier, but I finally DM'd you and I was like, you know what? I want to finally not keep you to myself, but introduce you to my community and share you with my world, because you have provided so much value for me that you didn't even know you were doing. So thank you. And I'm so happy to just dive into all things motivation and content creation.
Yeah, likewise. And, we were saying a minute ago, it's funny how reciprocal this stuff is. Cause you've been coming into my feed and we've kind of talked back and forth a little bit over the years, but I'm so inspired by you and what you do on stage and kind of blazing this trail for yourself. And it's just give and take, and so it's just, it's awesome to be in the room with you.
Well, you had no idea that before I get on a stage, I'm listening to you. Isn't that wild? I think it's important we talk about this, because if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know if I want to create content because I don't know who's listening to it. Someone out there might be getting unbelievably impacted in a massive way that you don't even realize. And you don't even know. And if you don't put the stuff, thank God, thank you for being seen. Thank you for putting yourself out there into the world and creating this content. Okay, so I want to back up. Now that you know, you guys are going to go now Google Eddie and you're going to go see all of his amazing videos, and he's crushing it on YouTube. How many subscribers do you have on YouTube?
Coming up on 800,000.
800,000. You're almost at 1 million.
Almost.
I want to know the day you decided to start creating these motivational speeches. Were you always a motivational speaker? Take me back to that day.
Yeah. So it is kind of a funny story, because it wasn't deliberate, in the sense that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was a continuation of, I know what I don't want to do, and so without giving my life story, started in the corporate world, and there were pieces that were great, but it's this ain't it, and so continuously moving on. I played music around Boston for a while, quit my job, acoustic shows, was writing, producing other artists, taking the camera out, running around the city, just making videos, just doing what I loved, creative writing. And, one day, because I always sort of like to philosophize and just think, and then that easily comes through in music, but that was the only avenue or vehicle I knew. And so, it was coming to the point where, playing acoustic shows around Boston doesn't really pay the bills the same way that the old job did. And just kind of sat down and wrote out this promise to myself called Ode to Excellence that was hey, you're feeling pressure and you're scared, but you've never really let yourself feel this. So do that. Try it just for once and trust that you'll pick yourself back up. And it combined the engineering and recording that I learned to do as a musician. It combined the speech writing. It combined the video component, and using Final Cut Pro and just kind of putting it all together, made this little 3-minute, what I felt like was a masterpiece, and sent it off on YouTube, and was just so proud of it. And that was the first piece. And the second was just the feedback almost immediately from an array of folks that was just like, hey, this helped me. This helped me think about things differently. I needed this. And so I'm like, if you can do something that you generally love to do, that scratches that creative itch, that allows you to think and put yourself out into the world, and it's directly helping others, sky's the limit. Like, let's go, you know?
Did you see another video that inspired you to do this? Or were you just like, I want to create a piece of art and put it on YouTube? Like, was this something that you saw that you wanted to emulate, or how did you get the idea?
I'd never been big into like personal development. You know, I truly didn't. It was just, it felt right. And the video is called Ode to Excellence. And if you listen to it, it doesn't come across like, I mean, it comes across like poetry almost. Like you can see the direct contrast between music to that, where you have it slow and then a build and then a crescendo at the end. And like, there's an intensity there. And so, yeah, there wasn't really a template. Like, I'm not sure I'd never come across something. I might have, but it was just kind of taking all these pieces of things I loved and just trying to make something meaningful.
So you just had this idea to do this and you did it. It sounds so simple, but was there any fear of putting that onto the internet?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the hardest part about being vulnerable. It's like things that you or I, because we've been doing this forever, we'd laugh at now, but it's like, you share something like that on Facebook, or I think it was Facebook at the time was the big one, and 2014-ish. And like, all your buddies are seeing it, and like, you're not getting likes and comments and the support that you'd hope you get. Again, trivial, anecdotal, but at the time, no, it's everything. Like, why aren't these, like, I need the support. This is embarrassing. This is new. And so it's learning to just, hey, trust the process and continuously put stuff out. And then another thing is like, you really analyze every word. Is this perfect? Whatever the hell perfect means, right? No one cares. No one's thinking that way. And so, part of that initial friction was learning to depersonalize. It's like, okay, this means something, put it out and just on to the next. Like, you have to have that sort of on to the next mentality. Otherwise you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah. Tell me more about that, because I could assume, because you're an artist, it's probably very easy, and I see a lot of artists do this, to perfect and perfect and perfect and not ever release anything. But you have hundreds and maybe thousands of speeches and videos that you've done by now. Tell us how we know when something is ready to be published or it's good enough.
Yeah, well, I don't know that there's a right answer for that. And it's a continuous relearning too. So for example, and this is kind of detailed, but I think it'll prove the point. Like, this isn't that long ago. This is 2 years ago. So I've been 8 years into this. And for a time was working with an ops guy, right? And we're talking about some of these videos, and I'm like, all right, well, I need a couple hours because, I want to go in there and take out the breaths. And when you're listening to a speech, sometimes it feels natural when the breath is completely removed. Sometimes if you completely remove a breath, it feels awkward. So you just want to take it down a little bit. And he's like, Ed, out of 1,000 people, 1,000 won't notice the breath, right? And I'm like, yeah, but it's perfect. And so it's like, I had to relearn, like, no, it's a waste of time. No one cared. Like, send it out.
You have to pick your battles with that, because you do have a level of greatness that your content is, and that's what separates it, right? Like, you go to the extreme to make it excellent. However, in order to make that much content, in order to catch that momentum, you have to keep producing. You can't be stuck on the breath.
Exactly. It's that fine line between like quality and scale.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always sort of leaned more towards quality than scale, but like you got to tiptoe that.
Okay, so let's go back. So you post this video, right? Yeah. Your friends are seeing it. They're like, what is Eddie doing? Yeah. Does he think he's a motivational speaker
Robbins
now?
Over here.
Yes. So, okay, so you're probably half feeling like, oh my God, what did I just do? And half like, this was fun. Can I do it again? Take me to now video number 2, because I feel like it's very easy to do it once. It's not very easy to be consistent.
Yeah. At that point, it was just so fresh and exciting. So like, I want to say like maybe the first 5 to 10, it was just fun. And so there really wasn't much pressure on myself until I'm like, I want this to be my living. But the reality is, especially starting on YouTube, like, there's no AdSense coming in. There's no revenue. You're a 26-year-old in his boxers at home. Like, that's just nothing cool about that, right? And so like, that's when it's all ego. Like, it's all ego. That's what the pressure is. I've talked about in a speech before. is sort of a microcosm of what I was feeling. And it's important to emphasize because everyone goes through this and it will feel like the world's crashing, but it's literally the cost of admission. I was at a bar with my buddies, very successful guys, all single. And, we're talking to some girls and I'm literally dreading the, so what do you do question, right? Because that's coming. And it did. And it's like, hi, I'm Eddie. I'm the guy with an idea for a YouTube channel. It's just like, but you learn something.
See, I'd be into that, but I don't know how any other.
You're cooler than most, Jen. You're cooler than most.
But did you have your corporate job still at that time?
No.
You had quit.
Left. Exactly.
Wait, talk to me about that. When did you make that decision to go all in on YouTube?
That was, so I quit and did music first.
Okay.
And then it was just kind of like, and technically I still do, but it's just kind of I'm like, I'm going to move in more of an artistic direction. Like the corporate space, again, it's incredible for a lot of people. It's just not the way my mind works. So I'm not going to go there. And it was it's like two things can be true at once. I look back now, there's that quote by J.R.R. Tolkien, not all who wander are lost. If I didn't leave without knowing exactly what I wanted, I'd still be there. So like, is the most important year of my life. But during that time, suffering truly, and like creating this album that I'm like, anything you spend hundreds of hours on, it's like, this is gonna change the world, right? And my grandmother bought like a few of them, handed them out to her friends, and that was it. I'm like dropping them at bars and clubs around Boston and like nothing, crickets. And it's like, oh my God, you can exhaust time and energy and pour all of yourself into something and the world can just not care. Like that is a huge lesson, but also sort of freeing. It's like, you'll get what you make. So just continuously put yourself back out there. It truly was a journey. It really, really was.
I know it well, getting rejected for the thing that you think is your purpose. And I find it so interesting that we have very parallel stories where you really probably thought that your purpose was to be a musician and you went out there and you were like, this is it. I'm going to drop off my demos at every single bar and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the grind. But secretly the universe was really leading you to this other thing that you didn't even really know even existed.
I know. And you can draw parallels, right? Because it's story. And really like my favorite genre of music is probably country right now. The best 4-minute storytellers on earth, in my opinion. And that's all this is, it's story. And I, speak over music. So it's like, you feel the cadence, you feel the rhythm. Like I wouldn't be able to do this without that. So like everything happens for a reason and everything's related. And one step is bringing you to the next and the next and the next. And I know it's kind of a cliche to be like, trust, but you have to, because the most important things are around the corner. You can't see them,
I'm literally like goosebumps. Okay, so now we have to talk about how you create this content.
Okay.
Because if you go and you check out Eddie, you're going to see there's so many speeches. You could listen to a completely different speech like every 5 minutes if you wanted to. I'm like, you are a human AI, essentially. And I know that you write your own stuff. So what is your creative process like? And do you ever get stumped? Do you ever have writer's block? Do you wake up and just write a unbelievable speech every day?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's humbling to hear. Basically, I'm just writing down notes in Evernote, like things that, I learn, encounter. Like I'll definitely write a speech about this. This is a pivotal moment, and so like.
I can't wait.
Yeah, but it's just capturing these things that we're so inclined to just walk right by or ignore. And so when you tune yourself to say, hey, this was a good moment in my day, note it. Or, hey, I got my ass kicked doing this. I'm not going to do it again. Note that. And so it's like you pull up Evernote and I go through and, I'll find a lesson or story, or maybe it's a line from a song or a poem, something that resonates. And, based on what that message is, I used to write the background music. Now, thankfully, I license it, save myself 3 days, So I'll drop that into Pro Tools and expand out the background music. And then loop that in my headphones and write the speech over the music. And just, once that's done, now send it off to my audio guy and try and do about 3 a week. There are definitely times where I'm like, to your point, I'm in the thousands now. So it's like, there's only so many main themes. So everything is contextually different. There has to be, there's like a not a huge jump from one to the other a lot of the times. So yeah, it's just sort of finding what matters to you, finding the things that had an impact and putting it out there for the world.
So essentially, you're pulling from your life experience.
Exactly.
So you have to live a lot of life in order to get these creative ideas.
Yes.
I love. I forgot who said this. I think it might have been Whitney Cummings. Some comedian said that that a comedian's really needs to live more life when all of their jokes are about airports.
Oh my God.
Because their whole life is just traveling around, and so all their jokes are about their experience. So you're a true creative and you have to be having these ideas all the time. So what are you doing in your life to pull from these ideas? Like, what does a day in the life of Eddie Pinero look like?
Well, you touched on a main theme that's critical that I've never been asked before. And again, I think it might be the parallel in what we do, where it's like being inspired is literally part of the job. Because if you want to tell stories that awaken the artist in other people and light people up, you can't do it if you're sitting in a studio all day, or you're, to your point, airport hopping or whatever. Like there has to be life lived. And the pragmatic brain goes, no, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time to go rent a cabin for 3 days in the middle of the week in Sedona. You're in your 30s, you have a job, do you? But no, that stuff arguably is life. It's that you can't skip that. And so it's important for me, it's important for you, but one of the messages that I try and convey is it's important for everybody, because when your life gets mundane, you're not firing on all cylinders. You have to create space to live, because the most important things come from that.
You're listening to The Jen Gottlieb Show.
You're also on this fitness journey. I think that you're I want to talk about this a little bit too, because I'm also a fitness person. And I think that there are such parallels with creativity and success and doing hard things also, and just fitness. And you've been on a transformation. So I'd love for you to share how that's changed the way that maybe you create content or your business, going on this health journey.
Yes. Well, it just helps me feel more aligned, right? Because I seek out growth and excellence in so many parts of my life, but then I'd be looking in the mirror and just be kind of disappointed.
When was this, when you were looking in the mirror feeling disappointed?
I want to say up until about a year and a half ago, maybe.
Okay, so this is recent.
Very recent.
You're creating this content. You're wow, my career is crushing. I have this thing. I can go to a bar now and be I'm a YouTuber. And it's badass. They don't even realize. And you're looking in the mirror and you're but this is not matching up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just, and so I would compensate, right? So the reason being is I have shoulder issues. And so anytime I'd lift, and believe me, I tried, anytime I'd lift anything over my head, it would be well, can't use your arm for a week, And so how do I compensate? I just run 12 miles, because it'd be well, it's hard and I'm getting out there and it's exercising, and I'd come in and, feel good, but I'd look like someone that ran 12 miles a day and never lifted weights, which depending on what you want, it just wasn't, I wanted to put on some mass. And so one of the things that happened when I moved from South Florida to Scottsdale is, I made friends and have a great network out there of people that are crushing it in their own arenas, especially in the fitness space, and just work with some of these guys. One of the first conversations I had with him, his name's Adam. I'm just saying just so you know, I'll train with you, but I can't lift over my head. He's you think you're the only one that has, you're not special. Everyone has that, and we can fix that. And it's true. And it took a long time. And there's still, right now, it's a little messed up, but you learn to do the right things. So I'm getting body work twice a week. I'm hitting the sauna every day, cold plunge every day. I'm doing mobility work. And so you don't accept it as it is. You realize that I don't like this and I can change it, and it might not be a 2-month thing or a 6-month thing or a 1-year thing, but you can change it. And so very clear parallel from that to anything you do, Take me through a day in the life, literally. So with your creating of your videos and how it works. So you wake up in the morning. I want to know your morning routine. I want to know all the things. Yeah. So it goes in seasons. It changes. Okay. But right now, so the big thing for me is the longer I go throughout the day without writing, the less inclined I am to do it that day, just because things get in the way and there's meetings and calls and distractions. And so it's I'll get up, being quiet for a little bit, have a cup of coffee, But then it's go into the studio and write a speech.
And your studio's in your home.
It is.
And you say, but what if you don't have a speech to write? Have you ever sat down and not been inspired?
Have you read The War of Art?
Yeah, it's my favorite book, and I interviewed Stephen.
You know what? I remember seeing that. That's
Yeah.
right. One of the most probably impactful, because that's how I thought.
Yeah.
You know, and I was okay with thinking that. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Eddie, you're a creator, and today there's nothing in the, but behind the eyes. So come back tomorrow. But it's like, nope, set the timer and write. And what I find is like sometimes the best stuff comes out, even if I'm writing about not being able to write. It's like relatable. Do you know what I'm saying?
Thank you. Thank you. Talk more about that, because I think sometimes you just need to get the brown water out before the clear water can come out of the faucet.
Exactly.
Right? You just got to get the shit out. Like, so even if it's about, I have no idea right now. I don't know what I'm going to say. And you literally will do that.
Yeah, it's like that journaling exercise where it's like you set a timer and just write what's on your mind. If you do that, there's something in there. And then, there are, some practical challenges, but if you learn to sort of detach from the result and not try and reverse engineer what's going to be a hit or successful or loved, and it's like, nope, just write down things that matter to you. Eventually there will be some type of nugget. Because again, I'm a human, and the goal is relatability. Like all I want is someone out there to say, oh, that's a great point. And I might not be a podcaster or YouTuber, but that helps me.
Yeah.
And so you just go and go until you find that.
Yeah, but I'm sitting here thinking about my listener who's trying to create content every day.
Okay.
And they're writing it and they're deleting it, and they're writing it and they're deleting it, or they don't think that it's good enough, or like, will anybody even get any value from this? Or they're videoing themselves and deleting it. And what it sounds like is you've gotten this down where you can sit down and you can write until it's good enough and you can produce it. And I'm really trying to figure out how, like, is there a system to that people can learn, or is it just reps? Is it reps?
So I think both, but for context, this is so important. Like if you look at each creation not as the end in and of itself, but as a process, it takes so much pressure off. Because I'm going to frame this because I just blew my mind. It wasn't that long ago. I was at Evan Carmichael's mastermind and talking about my YouTube channel, right? And so I presented this whole thing on thumbnails and optimizing click-through rate and titles and watch time. And I didn't get past like slide 3, because slide 3, I said, hey, I started this in 2014. It took me till like 2021 before I got that hockey stick effect, before I got, hundreds of thousands of views, sometimes in a day, before I made any substantial money from the channel that I fund my team with now. It took 7 years. And there were so many times where I created something and I'm like, this is everything. And you release it into the ether and it's like crickets. And you can't take it personally. You get up, sit down tomorrow and you do it again and again and again and again. And year 7, boom. And I just think of all those times where I'm looking at the door and I'm like, I don't want to go through this anymore, right? It's like, this sucks. I gotta be like, it just hurts. But for some reason I kept doing it, And so it may not be 7 years for you on your journey, but how do you know it's not video 427 or 183?
The only way you'll never find out is if you quit.
That's it. That's it.
You get the consistency thing. And you're such a great example of just building in the dark for when it comes to light. Everyone's like, oh yeah, he's an overnight sensation. No, you've been doing this for so long.
Yes.
So you sit and you write and you produce either a masterpiece or a failure, and you don't really care either way. You produce a piece of content.
Yeah.
You're done. You finish and it's done. And then do you go work out after that? What does the rest of your day look like as a YouTube content creator?
Yeah. So what I've been doing is working out late at night just because I love an empty gym. But like, and this is too much info, but I wake up the next morning
too much.
and feel tired. And I'm like, okay, so we got to change something. So now I found a nice weird little spot between like 2 and 3:30 where the gym's empty. I love an empty gym. I hate small talk at the gym. It's just one of my things. You know what I mean?
So we could have a whole podcast about that. Are you an introvert?
Probably.
I've been diagnosed.
Have you?
My
You're like, I
therapist.
am definitely an introvert.
Yeah, so introverts get their energy from being alone and expend their energy when they're around people. So it doesn't mean you're shy. Like, you can be around people, but you would rather be alone to get energy, creativity, and then when you're out and about, you kind of deplete it. But extroverts get their energy from being around people.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So you're introverted like me. So you love an empty gym. You love just having that empty open space. So you go 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly. So
What else do you got going on in your day?
gym and then sauna upstairs. And then I'll go back for the afternoon, like late afternoon. And that's usually like when I'll have, meetings or do like some of the maybe busy work or stuff that it's not necessarily creative. And then I've been cold plunging at night just to create space between, working out and the cold plunge, because one of apparently 10 million theories is you don't want those things too close together.
Right. That's what I heard.
Yeah. So
That's what I heard. So, and then this whole life thing, life content storytelling.
life
So
thing.
now and I want you to talk about that. I think it's important because we look at Instagram, social media, and we see people doing all these spectacular things all the time. And I wanted to talk to you about a day in the life of what it really looks like, because really what it looks like is you sitting in day out, creating your content, doing meetings, going cold plunge, sauna, and working out.
Yeah.
That's literally what a lot of my days look like too, but we're showing the highlight reels and everybody thinks like, oh, but I couldn't possibly build an epic YouTube channel or an epic platform because I don't do that much stuff. My life is boring. I think everybody's life essentially has some monotony, and like that's what it looks like. It's not that exciting producing this amount of content. So you speak, I'm guessing. Yes. I don't know a lot about your speaking.
I do.
A lot of people that listen to this podcast also want to be speakers. So I'd love to hear how your speaking started. Did it start after you started going viral on YouTube, or was it before?
it was after.
Tell me about it.
And that's a great story too, because when it's like a YouTube channel outpaced my competency on stage. So because, you had at the time, I don't remember how big the channel was before I started getting inquiries, 20, 30,000 subscribers, sitting in your studio with headphones, creating from the heart is a lot different than being handed a mic in a room of 2,000 people, right? So it's like, yeah, absolutely started accepting these gigs and learned really quickly there's a difference. And so it was, sort of growing into the type of person that could do both. And so a lot of reps and practice. I think I did my TEDx talk in like 2017, and it was like hundreds of times in front of the mirror. The big thing for me speaking, particularly starting out, was like, if you know what you're going to say like the back of your hand, you don't have to think about it. You can focus on being calm and using inviting body language and the things that, interact with the audience. So it was like truly just sort of figuring out as I went along, but YouTube came first. And
So that's how you got the invites. You built the brand.
Exactly.
You built the brand.
Exactly.
The brand comes first. And did you ever have any mentors in your speaking, or you just like got in front of the mirror and you're like, I'm just going to teach myself how to do this and do it a zillion times?
Yeah, that's it. Just like, let's do it. Let's bootstrap this thing,
And how does it work for you when you're preparing for a speech? What's your preparation?
So it's like understanding the theme, having a conversation with the people putting on the event, and then tying it to, some of the central themes that I talk about. There's a tendency or an inclination to want to recreate the wheel. And it's like the people that hired you watch your stuff and know what you're about. So it's more like, how do you shape your message to best, add value to the people in a particular room? And so right now what I'm in the process of doing is, this is sort of an internal thing. It's kind of a hunch, but it feels right. So, my YouTube stuff is very cinematic. There's a lot of feels, and it's over music, obviously. And then I'd go up and speak, and, hopefully it would be perceived in a powerful way, but it was like, there's a gap. And so what I'm doing is recreating that so it is more of a live production, and there is that music and visual and more of a performative component to it.
Love that.
It feels right. So that's what I'm working on now, and hopefully the next 3 or 4 months or so can roll that out. And
You got to go see Jesse Itzler speak. Have you seen him speak?
I haven't.
Okay. He does a lot of that in
Yeah.
like a really fun way. Be a really good person for you to watch.
Okay,
He's incredible.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
Okay, so now let's go back to the actual content, and I want to hear some just mindset stuff from you, because you're one of the best in the world and you truly understand this. And your content it sounds like someone that, like, when I sit here and I talk to you, I'm like, oh wow, like the person that you are when I listen to your content is someone that's been through something. that's really had a story. And where does this all come from? Like, where does this knowledge come from? Where does this mindset come from? Were you always this like motivational or inspired to do hard things? I think you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah. I mean, I was always philosophical, and I enjoyed, kind of looking around and asking the tough questions. So it just came sort of naturally. You know what I mean?
It was a letter to yourself, that first video. Genuinely, it wasn't like you went through something really challenging and you were trying to get through it and you were motivating yourself. You were just like, wake up. This is a letter to me to start like just going to the next level in life.
Exactly. So Viktor Frankl has, in Man's Search for Meaning, this sort of metaphor that I think is really cool, where he talks about suffering being like a gas, where it's going to fill essentially every room. So it's like one person's pain. So for example, you can say, well, they're a multimillionaire in Hollywood. How can they hurt? And it's like their pain can feel just as heavy as someone really going through it on the opposite end of, the spectrum, whatever the situation is. And so can you harness that? Can you turn that into something beautiful? I certainly had a very privileged childhood, in the sense that like middle-class family, my parents worked their asses off to give me everything. And so my suffering was very much self-induced. It was going out into the world, like, and learning to suffer. And in fact, like, college is through athletics where I first learned it. And I make that tie in quite a bit, where it's like rowing, Holy Cross is a D1 rowing program. And it was just suffering for sport. And it was another light bulb moment where it's like, oh my God, you can suffer like this. And oh my God, you can suffer like this and lose. What? And so like, it's taking that into any entrepreneurial journey where you learn that like, there is no upside without that.
Yeah.
And so as you're going through it, it's just kind of looking around and documenting these pieces and being able to kind of capture and gift them back out to the world, because sometimes people just want to know, when they're going through it and it's the darkest and it feels like the world's coming down, that, hey, you're going to get through this. This is life. Everyone deals with this. You're not alone in this pursuit. That can be so meaningful.
Thank you for saying that. What a beautiful example, because a lot of people come to me and they say, Jen, I don't know if I can tell my story because nothing like extravagantly terrible happened to me. I didn't go to jail. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like these big stories, and they feel like, oh, but my story isn't that important. And if you can help somebody else feel seen, there are so many people out there that are suffering in something that doesn't seem like quote unquote a big deal to other people, but it is all subjective. And the person listening to you and to your motivational talk might be just somebody that's dealing with a really terrible breakup. And then it also might be somebody that's dealing with not being able to have a child, or maybe somebody that's dealing with the fires in California. And it could be all ends of the spectrum, but it still is going to help them. 100%. And wherever it comes from is where it comes from. And so thank you for sharing that where it comes from. Now, for you personally, when I wrote a book called Be Seen, and when I was marketing it, I needed to read my own damn book because I was so terrified of judgment and putting it out there, and like, is it going to do well? And all of the noise that I write about in my book of how to help people. So I was taking my own advice.
Yes.
Do you ever like have to take your own advice or listen to your own stuff? Or do you have a mentor that snaps you out of it if you can't listen to yourself?
Yeah, well, I don't listen to my own stuff, but I do like 1,000% agree. I think we're relearning the same things because in different seasons we need it again, right? So, I consider right now, I'm at sort of a crossroads creatively, and you have in your mind, like, I was just wandering through the desert, it felt like, for so long that it's like you have in your head, no, Eddie, you're someone that does hard things. Here's the proof. Look where you are. And then you're really honest with yourself and you go, well, it's been 2 years. What have you done that's put yourself out of your comfort zone? Right? So I need to, at this point, read my own book, and that will never change. I think it was Jordan Peterson who talked about life as like a staircase where it's like you climb and climb and climb, right? So like you land on a step and it's there, it's higher than you were, but then you look around and, well, the ceiling is now the floor. So it's a process of being cyclical with that. It's not a one and done thing. And anyone that claims they overcome fear or, oh, no.
Always. It's the process. We're all constantly on our own process. Always.
100%.
And I mean, every time I get to the next level, I'm a beginner again. Every damn time. I'm like, oh, I'm at this level, but now I'm a beginner at this level.
Yeah.
And we forget it.
It's a cool way to put it. It's a beginning again.
You're beginning again.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you become a master at one thing. So let's say you become successful at YouTube, going from your very first video to now you're almost have 1 million subscribers. But now you're at this different level that probably still feels inside a lot like how you felt at the first level, just with different outcomes around you.
Right. And it's almost like you could make an argument that it's scarier the second time around because now you have something to lose.
Exactly. There's
know?
more pressure.
Yeah.
There's more expectations. Stakes are higher.
So what kind of life do you want to live?
What does that look like for you right now?
I think so I've gotten very comfortable. It's my issue, Jen, is with the algorithm, right? And well, technically with myself, but I understand the YouTube algorithm to an extent and understand the format that will win. The only issue is that boxes you in creatively. And so if I move outside that, I get whacked. And so
Can you explain that, what that means?
Sure. So first of all, you really only win on YouTube if you're recommended by YouTube on the platform to other channels like you, right? So like if I'm pegged as motivation, it would be like I would win, the channel would grow if under a bunch of other inspirational videos, YouTube says, here's Eddie Pinero, right? People go, oh, what's this? And so how do you do that? Very stuffy standard titling. Thumbnails that resemble other channels. Watch time. The longer the watch time, the better, because YouTube wants people to stay on platform, which means if you have a video that's 5 minutes and someone watches 100% of it, theoretically, that's less valuable than if you had a 5-hour video and someone watched 7% of it. And so you're like, okay, well, longer videos, right? And that works. And people, even though it's on YouTube, they view it as a podcast. So most of the time it's audio, they're walking, running, they're not even looking at the visuals. But that means there's so many things that I want to try and do, and storytelling, especially in the 5 to 7 minute range, whether it's vlogs or stuff while running or working out or pulling music back into things, or stuff that I'm working on now that like truly felt like suicide, but it's that conversation, and why I say I'm like sort of at a turning point creatively, where it's like, what kind of life do you want to lead? What kind of creator do you want to be? If you don't start taking risks, you'll resent yourself. I mean, that's the reality. So I think there is a courage required.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, and I'm not we need to become friends after this. You need to help me with YouTube. But
absolutely.
With the creative, because you're an artist and you take your creative really seriously, and every single piece of content that you create, you want people to genuinely like get something out of it and love it, and it means a lot to you. But if you're learning about this YouTube algorithm and the YouTube algorithm is like, no, your creative thing doesn't work, you need to go do this other thing. Right. You either need to, is that what you mean? Like kind of sell your soul a little bit to make money and be in the algorithm, or be super creative and take the risk and maybe risk like, oh my God, my creativity is going to beat it out because people are just going to like it. Or I'm not going to do as well financially because I'm being creative.
That's exactly it. So if I wanted to if it was all algorithm and growing
you
the
could
channel,
hack it.
It would be a 3-hour video every day, period. Fine. But like, so for example, and I just got with my team and we had this discussion where it's like last Saturday, I released a video that kind of talked about the story of, 2014, leaving the job to where I'm at now. And the idea is go before you're ready. I didn't have all the answers. You won't either. Go. And it's 8 minutes. And there's story and clips sort of interwoven into this like, story. And I said, this is not going to do well. We're not going to look at that as a key metric. We're going to do this for 3 months every Saturday and see how we feel about it. And then we'll weigh the pros and cons, sure, analytically, but what is this doing for us? How is it connecting with the audience, right? And so last week was the first week of the experiment. And yeah, it got about 1/4 of the engagement or the views that longer videos do, but you should see the comments, right? It's like 20 times the comments with 1/4 the views. And people sending the sweetest messages. And it's like, there's proof. Like this is it. This is right. You have to go with what feels right. You can't be a slave to these things.
Get outside of your comfort zone and into your best life, one small step at a time.
So easy to be a slave to the vanity metrics and to get lost in it and to get lost in the, all of the ego-y stuff about it. And when you have a team and you have a business, it starts to, I'm sure, weigh on you. Like, all right, I gotta support all these people. I gotta support myself. Like, but at the end of the day, like, why are we doing this? Really, why?
Exactly.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So,
and it doesn't have to be an and or thing. It could be, it doesn't have to be an or thing. It can be an and thing,
It can be an and. And I love what you're doing with just playing with it and starting and doing it slow. And every Saturday, people can see these videos from you?
Yeah, Saturday.
So what does that look like? What's the shift that's happening there? Like, that's going to be more like where you play and go outside of the box? Yeah,
and I think this might speak to your introvert question. Like, I'm very comfortable sitting behind a desk and almost like a writer, right? I don't love a camera at my face. It's not my favorite thing. But that probably means I should do some of that, right? So it's a lot more like day in the life. Or, I was just in Miami and Carolina for a week. Here's something I learned, and turning it into like a, what's the word? Like
a vlog, like a story, like a day in the life. I don't know, like you're sharing your experience.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So for the people that are listening right now, and I'm sure you could just pour into them, that I know I'm thinking about them right now, that have this goal. Yeah. They have a goal, whatever it is, and they wake up every day and they have all intention of doing it. They have every intention. They're like, I'm going to do it today. And then resistance comes in, all about resistance, the war of art, comes in and it's like, no, I think that you should really go wash the dishes, or I think that you should really go clean the garage, or I think that you should really try this tomorrow, or who are you to start this today? Maybe tomorrow you'll feel like it's more perfect. What would you say to them if they find themselves listening to this right now? And if you find yourself listening to this right now, it is meant for you. The universe has sent it to you. Eddie, what would you say to them?
I would say that everyone has an artist in them. And an artist does not necessarily mean music or painting. An exceptional athlete is an artist. An exceptional speaker, someone in the business field, an exceptional single mother is an artist. It's mastery in some component of you and what you love. That's there. And I think life becomes truly meaningful when you unlock that. Now, the part and I know is that unlocking that is expensive, not financially, but emotively and energy, and it hurts your ego, and there's just challenges. And so if you show up for yourself every day and, realize, hey, I don't need to perform any miracles. There's nothing I need to do overnight, but day by day, little acts of courage, little steps forward, you'll look back in 5 years and you'll see just transformation beyond your imagination, right? So step into it.
Step into it.
Yeah.
Start before you're ready.
Start before you're ready.
Go before you're ready is your video. Go before you're ready. What is coming up next for you other than playing with these new Saturday videos? Tell us, what's the next evolution of Eddie? How can we support you in that? Or how can you, hold yourself accountable to doing some hard shit by saying it out loud here? I don't know.
Hey, just throwing it out there. So, some projects that I'm working on is that live show, which I'll definitely share with you and keep you posted on. I'm excited about that. I just teamed up with one of my good friends, also a very smart guy in the apparel world, to work on a clothing brand. So that's
cool.
I'm very excited about that.
Have you ever been in that industry at all in your life?
No.
Okay.
But I love it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Does it have a name? Can we talk about it or not?
It's going to fall under the Your World Within, same as the podcast.
So cool.
Yeah.
So it's going to be all part of the brand.
Yes.
Obsessed. Okay. Well, keep us posted on that.
I certainly will. And, just, pushing boundaries on YouTube. And I'd love to, connect with folks there. Instagram. One of the new series I started, to kind of hold my feet to the fire is making art from mundane things. And there's this, video about a stain on the rug, a coffee stain on the rug, so just little things like that, just getting myself outside of the box. And I would advocate and recommend to any listener that they do the same. It doesn't have to be huge. I think the quotes do one thing every day that scares you. 365 of those days go by, you're not the same person.
1,000%. Wait, the stain video, I watched it. And I want everybody that's sitting here right now listening, I'm just envisioning you guys sitting with us, but I want you to go to this video because it's a perfect example of how like you can play and just make a video about anything. Like Eddie's like, I'm going to make a video about this stain on this carpet and I'm going to make it into a motivational masterpiece with like cinematic music. And like all of a sudden I'm like, what am I watching? I thought I was watching about how to get a stain out of a piece of like out of a carpet. It can be anything. So you guys, thank you for listening. I'm so grateful that I got to share Eddie with you. I felt like he was like my little secret thing, but now you all know about him. So go check him out on YouTube, Your World Within, on Instagram and on YouTube, and you will thank me later because he's phenomenal. And if you love this episode and you're really enjoying it, tag us on Instagram, tag Eddie, tag me, share it on stories. We'll reshare you and share this with a friend, most importantly, because you know, we're not doing this just to do it ourselves. We want to share with the world. That's the point. So thanks so much for watching the Jen Gottlieb Show. Eddie, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was incredible.
Love you guys. Bye.